All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that intro. I certainly enjoyed making it for you. I shouldn't have to say this, but I want to say this at the beginning of all these saw videos. I am not a logger, as is evident to anybody who logs or runs a saw for a living. You will be able to tell right away that I am barely comfortable with this tool, but that's the purpose of these videos, trying to get more comfortable with this tool. And I'm going to tell you what I have learned from a non-professional point of view. Lots of professional opinions online, but sometimes those guys forget how difficult it is for us to learn a new skill. This is not my trade, though. So first thing that I learned is that you want two saws. You'll want a saw in like the 60, 70 cc class to do the heavy work, and you want something in the 40 cc class or an electric saw. I'll talk about that later. But if you only had one, you can certainly do it. It's just the ergonomics are going to matter more. You'll notice here that when I'm not running the saw, I'm resting it on the tree, and when I do have to reach out and cut, I'm pulling it right back into my body. You'll do this naturally just because it's where it feels comfortable, but if you watch loggers, you'll get a better picture of how to handle this saw when you're not cutting. All right, now the question of procedure comes up. Unfortunately, every tree is different, especially hardwoods. The crowns are all different. This one I take a pie out of to get the flop down, and I feel more safe that way. I've shown this before with bigger crowns. There's different ways to do that, but you want to make sure you don't get pinned under the tree. So it's not always start at the top or start at the base, though. You'll want a lighter saw when you're dealing with the smaller limbs. So I'm going to put that away and pick up my favorite saw. If I only had to have one, it would be this 445 right here. It's light. It has plenty of power. I just wouldn't go without this, honestly. I'd pretty much fall any tree around with this saw here. Now, on the East Coast, you're going to deal with a lot of scraggly branches like this. And if you have to pick them up, or if somebody that you're working with has to pick them up, think about that as you're cutting. Like, see, I dropped a Y branch there, and those are a pain in the ass if it's going in the chipper or when you're picking it up because it gets stuck on everything. So if you're just topping the tree, just top it and leave it in the woods. But if you're gonna have to pick all these up, think about that and cut it into smaller pieces. You'll see here on the sassafras tree, I have to do a lot of slashing and dashing. And this is often what it looks like when you got vines or vine-bound trees. You're just in there gunning it out, but don't cut haphazardly because there's still a lot of tension and compression you need to think about, and I'll talk about that in a bit. That applies here more than anything else because you can get a limb that's really sprung. Can't talk about all that. You just need to think about where the compression and tension's at here. So compression on the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and take a little notch out, and then I'll cut from the tension side, and it's going to split. That doesn't matter here because I'm not trying to save the log. This is just firewood. I thought I'd show you this. This happens a lot when you fall a tree and you need to limit. It catches hold of a sapling like this little hackberry. I don't think there's actually a lot of tension on this and it's pulled down, but this is the kind of stuff you got to look out for because I'm in this ravine, and if I just start cutting without paying attention and I release the weight there, this thing is a catapult, and if you're anywhere near it or all this shit could come up in your face. I don't think anything's going to happen here, but it's a good example of what could happen and what to look for. And I mean, I'm down in this little ravine. You should try to clear around your feet so you can move out of the way, but truthfully, I just can't get out of the way if something happens here. So I need to think before I cut. Yeah, I really can't say it any clearer than that. It's basic common sense. I mean, you have to understand some basic physics, I suppose, intuitively. The more you do it, the more you'll know what to look out for, obviously. And I've learned some lessons the hard way about just going in there and whacking stuff off, for sure. It's how I learned this lesson. If I had to tell you to get any piece of safety gear that I have on here, it would be this helmet, man. This is a $300 helmet, and it's worth more than that. It's not only comfortable and easy to put on and take off, but it's protected me a number of times. I like won't even cut with it anymore, that shield. But the pants and the boots and all that, you don't need all that. In fact, I wonder how it's even like possible to get your leg in a way. I'm sure it has happened. That's where cuts occur, but it almost seems impossible. Anyway, we don't walk on the log a lot like this here, but I took a fall recently, and that's why I got the corks. I'm like, that won't happen again. But yeah, you don't need them. What you really want is that helmet. So this is the hardest wood around. This is red elm. It's seasoned. It's been dead standing for years. Just watch how slowly this saw cuts through it. And this saw is plenty sharp. You can't force it, though. You just got to wait. And this is where I should probably pick up the bigger CC saw. So even this right here is more dangerous than it seems. You really can't always tell how much tension is on a tree, and removing one branch sometimes can shift everything, which is why you want to get the top branches if possible so that if it rolls, you're not pinned underneath of it. This is just here to show you what a little saw can do. This is definitely overmatched, but those of you who have red elm, you know how hard seasoned red elm is, and this saw will still eat right through it. But it's more purpose for this type of stuff right here. Top of a cherry tree, we call this pish cherry. It's really soft. Wrapped up with honeysuckle and grapevines, that's normal for around here, and those things are a pain in the ass and can cause you trouble, and I'll show you that here in just a second. A lot of times when I'm cutting a kerf like that, I stop just to see where the tension is at, because sometimes it's so hard to tell with all this shit, and you want to get it out of the way. You got to use the saw overhead so things can happen, and watch what happens here. I think this is just hanging out, so I think there's no tension or compression on it, and I'm surprised. I get pinched right here. I'm like, wow, I wasn't expecting that, which happens often. So I come under from the tension side, and this springs right back in my face. Thankfully, it wasn't that bad, but if I didn't have that mask on, that could have been an eye poke for sure.
See that one vine? One little vine I missed there, and this had a lot more tension on it than I thought. I didn't expect to get pinched like that because I thought it was just hanging out. It's so easy to misjudge the tension and compression on these big crowns. Even small crowns that are just complicated with all these this grapevine and honeysuckle is just nasty stuff. But now it's free. Now it's just firewood all the way down.
All right, I gotta say this. One pet peeve of mine when I watch guys limb, unless you're cutting something, there's no need to rev the saw. Look, I get pinched there. I wasn't expecting that, and that's because those vines were holding it up. But yeah, you don't need to keep revving it out. Boom, boom, boom. Just crack, knock the limb off. Crack, knock the limb off. Otherwise, you're just wasting fuel.
One thing that the Europeans do, because they have the half wrap, is rest the saw on the trunk or the log, or in this case, a branch of the tree, and just sort of roll it around. This works really well when the tree is nice and tall with lots of limbs. We don't get those kinds of evergreens here very often. A little spruce, a little pine, but not much. So this kind of limbing is more East Coast specific, at least deciduous hardwood. And if you're just topping, obviously you don't have to work your way in through that brush. But if you want to leave that for bird nesting, or if you want to burn it, better to sort of slash and dash your way in there and then take care of these. I'll use a lot of this for firewood here. Now that I got it suspended, it's easy cut.
All right, guys, so nothing groundbreaking there. I want to talk about this little battery saw, but let me first say I've done lots of trees this year. I probably felled, limbed, and bucked like 25 or 30 trees, which is way more than I normally do. I normally am just cutting a windfall, maybe fall a couple trees a year. But this saw is a game changer for limbing. It's the lightest saw I own, and one of these batteries will run about 35 minutes of real work. So throw two in your bag, and you can do an hour's worth of work, which will allow you to process the top of any tree. And it's super light. I don't know what the weight is, but I highly recommend these for limbing. And it's the first saw I grab when I got to do most limbing until I get into the bigger stuff. When you have to walk in like this is the saw to take. So I got a cherry tree here down at camp, and it's good firewood. So I'm going to process the top of the tree with it first before I go get the bigger saw.
Tell you what happened. Big old cherry tree blew over in a storm, windstorm.
The one thing you do need to remember with these saws is you do need to fill it up with oil. It's easy to forget the bar oil because you're not filling it up with fuel, but Fill it up with bar oil once, and pretty much you can run 2 batteries without having to worry about it. And you can see here, I mean, it'll do real work, but at some point you're going to want to swap this out for a bigger saw. So I go ahead back and get the 70cc saw. I'm really liking this Husky a lot. I don't like it with the full wrap. I went ahead and put the half wrap back on, and I don't think I'd run it on anything bigger than a 24-inch bar. That seems about right for this. I went ahead and got a ported muffler, and that's really opened it up. The danger with this tree here is that there's a lot of tension. You can see I got pinched here, or compression rather. And there's these 2 big forks that are driving down into the ground. And I'm a little bit concerned that if I let this loose, that tree could come sliding down the hill after me. I don't think so, but I realize that here. And I get on the outside, which is the safest place. Again, just common sense, thinking through the problem. The wedge just allows me a little bit more time to get my bar out. So in this case, you're basically bucking just compression first and tension second. And once you get that tension off, it's a lot safer. A lot of time that means back barring in these cases. So I'm just testing it here. I'm stopping to see what the tree's doing, and then I'm going to come ahead and come from the top and let this drop so it doesn't drop on my bar. But you see how fast it happens. I mean, you can't react that fast. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something. There's nothing new here. I'm just sharing my experience. I'm getting more comfortable with the saw. Hopefully I'll have the 500 eyes soon. Peace. Here's a few bonus clips I had on my phone. You might as well watch these. This is when the saw's piped, so you'll get to hear it. It definitely sounds meaner, and it has opened it up some. I was surprised at how easy I could bog this saw down before on the low end, and you'll see that in this big log when I'm bucking it up. I can still bog it down, but it'll chew through it now.
Tiniest bit of Dutchman, nothing I'm worried about. Go from the back. How's that?